And good morning, friends. Welcome to The Bright Side. I am Pharmacist Ben. Thanks for joining us. Our number today and every day on The Bright Side is 844-236-6010. If you have comments, questions, success stories you'd like to share, if you just want to contribute to the conversation, 844-236-6010 is our number. We love hearing from you, 844-236-6010. If you want to purchase longevity products, head to brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. You can purchase all your favorite longevity products off our websites. You can also call 866-735-2470, 866-735-2470. If you'd like to speak to a real live person, you can also ask about joining the Brightside Ben team for a one-time $30 fee. You can be in business for yourself. You can start a home-based business and help change the world with the power and importance of a good nutritional supplement program. If nutritional supplementation has helped you or your loved ones in your life and you want to pay it forward, if you want to have a home-based business, if you want to make some spare dollars, the longevity business opportunity is an ideal way. Call 866-735-2470 for more info, or click on the Join the Team link at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. Jackie Jordan will be with us at the bottom of the hour. Her book is Heartfelt Marketing. Jackie is a media consultant and a television producer, and her book is about allowing the universe to be your business partner. That's her subtitle in the book, Heartfelt Marketing. It's a slim book, a slim volume, but it's got lots of great tips, and it's got a great concept, the idea that you can succeed from the heart as much as you can succeed from the head. And I love that concept. Marketing and business and sales and entrepreneurship and capitalism have gotten a bad name, unfortunately, but it doesn't have to be the case. If you lead with the heart, if you lead with giving, if you think about improving people's lives, that's why I love the longevity business so much, is because it's about improving people's lives and making money at the same time. It's about being a heartfelt capitalist. I like capitalism. I'm all about capitalism. I've been a capitalist my whole life. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. And I've always thought that the bad rap that capitalism gets and that money gets and that business gets doesn't have to be the case. We have we've created a world where we have an adversarial relationship between buyer and seller, between boss and employer. We have adversarial relationships everywhere, but it doesn't have to be the case. And that's what the book Heartfelt Marketing is about. That's what Jackie Jordan is about. And that's what allowing the universe to be your business partner is about. We'll talk to Jackie Jordan at the bottom of the hour. We'll get your calls next segment. If we have calls, 844-236-6010 is our number on the Bright Side. So we've been talking about the importance of hydrochloric acid in the stomach, that is, contrary to what most people think. Most people, when they think of hydrochloric acid, or when they think of acid in the stomach, they think of too much acid. That's why you have antacids as the best-selling drugs in the world. Antacids like proton pump inhibitors, antacids like Tums, and that just neutralize acid. You've got so-called H2 inhibitors, which are basically antihistamines like Tagamet and Zantac. Yes, Tagamet and Zantac are antihistamines, not the kind of antihistamines that you use for allergies like Benadryl. There's actually two types of histamine. There's H1 and H2. The kind of histamine that Tagamet and Zantac work with is the histamine that's involved in acid production. You can't use your Tagamet and your Zantac for pollen allergies necessarily, but they still work as antihistamines. In any case, the real big problem is low stomach acid, is too little stomach acid, contrary to popular belief. And heartburn and GERD are not really acid problems, they're sphincter problems. That is so important to understand. Acid reflux issues are miserable. They affect millions, probably maybe 70, 80 million Americans deal with acid reflux issues and heartburn issues, but they're not acid problems. They're sphincter problems. You have a little muscle that connects the esophagus to the stomach. When that sphincter becomes a little loose, when sphincter laxity it's called, when it relaxes, that's when acid splashes back up. On the other hand, when stomach acid is low, a bacteria called H. pylori can proliferate, and that really is a problem. H. pylori can induce defects in the cells that produce acid, and that can lead to laxity in the lower the LES, it's called, the sphincter, the lower esophageal sphincter. And that's where you really get into a problem. The LES tightens up when there's acid, and it loosens up when there's low acid. Under conditions of low acid, the LES will get loose. And then the little bit of acid that's in the stomach splashes back up. So it's not too much acid that's causing the splashback. It is too little acid, which leads to laxity of the LES. That too little acid often involves this bacteria, H. pylori. But it's a vicious cycle because low acid leads to more H. pylori. So H. pylori causes low acid, and low acid leads to more H. pylori, which causes more low acid, which causes more H. pylori. You get this vicious downward cycle of acid and bacterial infection. And you can rest assured that if you have a chronic health challenge of any kind, that it's very likely that you're dealing with this problem. Any kind, especially autoimmunity and skin diseases. By the way, about 50% or so of Americans are dealing with an H. pylori infection. And you don't even have to know that you have an H. pylori infection. Sometimes they'll be asymptomatic. But if you do have a chronic health challenge, you can pretty much assume that you're dealing with an H. pylori problem, especially if you find yourself taking a lot of antacids or a lot of these proton pump inhibitors, these PPI-type drugs, which are the best-selling drugs in the world. That's a lot of folks. Researchers believe that this H. pylori problem begins in childhood. You don't notice it, but it gets worse and worse and worse, and it persists, and then you finally notice it as you get older. It's also believed that H. pylori can spread through what's called the oral-to-oral route, which is basically kissing, or the fecal-to-oral route, which is as disgusting as it sounds. Involves contaminated water. Also, vomit can do it too. You know, contaminated water or contaminated food sometimes has traces of these awful bodily secretions. And while over 50% of Americans are infected with H. pylori, you're not going to know it. Unless you're dealing with rosacea or some kind of intractable skin issue, rashes that you don't know where they're coming from, if you have gastritis, if you have incomplete food processing, especially if you're not processing your proteins correctly, if you have any kind of malabsorption issues, if you have SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, that can be a sign of H. pylori. Autoimmunity is almost guaranteed you've got an H. pylori problem. Fatigue, lethargy. But a lot of times you're not going to attribute it to H. pylori. Very rarely, actually, unless you're listening to this program, are you going to think that autoimmunity and H. pylori go together. Certainly, dermatologists don't link skin diseases to H. pylori, but in my practice, I always ask patients who have problems with their skin what their digestive system is like, what their digestion is like. It's a very interesting story, by the way, about the discovery of H. pylori as a cause of digestive problems. We'll talk about that when we come back from our break. I'm Pharmacist Ben. Got lines open, 844-236-6010. You're listening to The Bright Side. We'll be back right after this. On the bright side, I'm Pharmacist Ben. Thanks for joining us. Jackie Jordan will be with us at the bottom of the hour. We're going to talk about her book, Heartfelt Marketing, Allowing the Universe to Be Your Business Partner, which is about the link between the heart and money, the heart and making money. Actually, between spirituality and making money, really, is what it comes down to. Jackie is a media consultant and a producer. And she's been featured in various magazines, including Entrepreneur and Selling Power and Feedback Magazine. I love the idea of entrepreneurship. I actually had a subscription to Entrepreneur for many years, the magazine Entrepreneur. And I'm telling you, being an entrepreneur is just it's such an exciting way to live your life. It's empowering, it's exciting, it's an adventure. It's not for everybody, but if you're looking to have a little bit more zest in your life, and if you're not happy with your lot in life, if you're not making enough money, if you find yourself dealing with or being affected by the problems in the economy, and lots of people are, but lots of people are also succeeding. And that's because they're taking the bull by the horns. That's what entrepreneurship is about. It's about taking the bull by the horns, taking control of your life. And it's an awesome way to live your life, in my humble opinion. We'll talk to Jackie Jordan at the bottom of the hour. Her book, Heartfelt Marketing. We'll get your calls this segment. If we have calls, 844-236-6010. So we're talking about this idea of the relationship between the bacteria H. pylori and low stomach acid and various health challenges. I would venture to say that almost all health challenges that are chronic have some degree of H. pylori infection involved. I remember when I graduated pharmacy school, I've told the story before, the best-selling drugs were Zantac and Tagamet. And it was pretty much assumed that if you had an ulcer, it was related to stress. That was the meme. That was the general belief. In fact, doctors would not only give you Tagamet and Zantac if you had an ulcer, they would give you Xanax. And they would give you antidepressants if you had an ulcer, assuming that your ulcer was related to too much stress or anxiety or psychological issues. But these two doctors from Australia, a guy named Neil Noakes and another guy named Barry Marshall, had a different kind of thought. Barry Marshall was a gastroenterologist, and he had been using antibiotics to treat ulcers, and he tried to get people to understand that he was having a lot of success using antibiotics. He was trying to get medical professionals to start using antibiotics for ulcers, and people would just laugh at him. As what always happens when somebody has a new idea or radical concept, first they're laughed at. And finally, Marshall and Noakes were so frustrated, they decided to do a test. And they actually took some bacteria, some H. pylori bacteria from a petri dish, and they mixed the bacteria with some beef extract, which is a growth substance for bacteria, and they filled it into a beaker, and they let it sit for a little bit so the bacteria could proliferate. And they actually drank this H. pylori cocktail. They drank this H. pylori drink, and then in a couple of days, sure enough, Dr. Marshall felt nauseous, and his breath started to get bad, and he started vomiting, and then he waited a couple of days, and he took some antibiotics that were supposed to kill the bacteria, and they looked inside, and they checked, and they found that, lo and behold, the bacteria were gone, and so were his symptoms. And by this experiment, they demonstrated that H. pylori could cause gastritis and could cause ulcers, and it could cause all kinds of digestive problems. And pretty soon, the word was out, and doctors started to use antibiotics. And by 2005, it became conventional wisdom that H. pylori was involved in these stomach problems, gastritis and ulcers in particular. And in 2005, Dr. Marshall actually won the Nobel Prize. The Nobel Prize in Medicine for his discovery that this little tiny bug, this little tiny single-cell organism was responsible for these digestive health problems, and all you needed was a couple of antibiotics, typically tetracycline or amoxicillin. Sometimes there's something called Flagyl, metronidazole, to get rid of the bacteria and improve lots of symptoms, including ulcers. And today it's considered common knowledge, and if you go to the doctor and they detect gastritis or an ulcer, they'll give you an antibiotic, just like they used to give you Tagamet and Zantac. You can actually have H. pylori tested. You can actually be tested for an H. pylori infection using them. They'll do a blood test, they'll do a stool culture, sometimes they'll do a biopsy, which is a bit invasive. They also have an interesting diagnostic technique, I guess, using a urea pill. It's called the urea breath test. You swallow a capsule that contains a little molecule called urea, which is a natural biochemical found in your body. Urea was actually the first biochemical that was made in an organic lab back in the 1830s. It's a very simple molecule. It contains nitrogen and a little piece of carbon. And H. pylori, as it turns out, makes an enzyme that breaks down urea, something called urease. And if you take this capsule and you do have an H. pylori infection, the metabolites of the urea will show up in your exhaled breath, and they can actually test your breath. It's called the urea breath test, and it's probably the simplest, easiest way to check to see if you have an H. pylori infection. If you do have one, they'll just give you some antibiotics. It's actually really easy to treat. Now, taking antibiotics has its own pitfalls, of course, so you don't want to be on antibiotics too long, and once you are on your antibiotic, you want to make absolutely sure you're taking probiotics. Never take your probiotics with your antibiotics, though. Obviously, if antibiotics kill bacteria, they're going to kill your probiotics, so you always want to separate out your antibiotics and probiotics, maybe 8 hours or so after you take or 6 hours or so after you take your antibiotic, take a probiotic. And definitely when you're done with your course of antibiotics, you want to make sure you're loading up with probiotics and using or eating lots of fermented foods. One of the interesting mechanisms for H. pylori infection involves its ability to stick to your stomach cells, particularly the cells that make acid and the cells that make mucus. By the way, H. pylori also suppresses mucus production in the digestive system or in the stomach. So the H. pylori has an ability to stick to these stomach cells, stick to the mucus cells, with a little Velcro-like attachment that bacteria have. This Velcro-like attachment is called a lectin. And recently we've heard a lot about these things, these lectins. A lot of reactive substance, a lot of reactions from food occur via this lectin to cell interaction. And if you've heard of a guy named Dr. Stephen Gundry, he's been talking about it for the last couple of years. He's written a couple books about one called the plant paradox. And Dr. Lectin's hypothesis is plants contain substances that have lectin-like attachments. Gluten is one of those substances that has a lectin-like ability to stick to your cells. Bacteria do the same thing. E. coli, for example, does that. H. pylori has a lectin-like attachment that can that can allow these bacteria to wreak havoc on various parts of your body. What's interesting about lectins is you can actually slime the lectin away. There are actually things that you can take that will detach this Velcro-like attachment to your cells. And if you're dealing with any kind of lectin reaction, you want to make sure that you're using some of these substances. It's kind of an interesting reaction that happens. It's slimy materials, things like algae and aloe, which have kind of a mucousy-like quality. Also, seaweed has a mucus-like quality. There's some herbs like something called colt's foot, also slippery elm, have this kind of mucus-like ability to slime the lectin away. They can actually detach the lectin from cells. We'll continue talking about that tomorrow on The Bright Side. I am Pharmacist Ben. Jackie Jordan will be with us in our next segment. We're going to talk about her book, Heartfelt Marketing, Allowing the Universe to Be Your Business Partner. We'll be back with Jackie Jordan on The Bright Side right after this. We are back on The Bright Side. I'm Pharmacist Ben. We're on the air Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 Pacific and 10 to 11 Central Time, and 24/7 on the archive page at benfuchsarchives.com. Thank you to Peter in the UK for setting that up. We also have an archive page at brightsideben.com. And we've got the longevity products and your Join the Team link that you can click on if you want to sign up to join the Brightside Ben team at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, and criticalhealthnews.com. We've got blog posts, news stories, videos, lots of good health information on all our websites, brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, and criticalhealthnews.com. And don't forget to take a peek at our Truth Skin Health products at truthtreatments.com, truthtreatments.com, all formulated in my compounding pharmacy for healing wounds. As it turns out, healing wounds is beauty. And that's why we have over 1,400 4- and 5-star reviews, which you can take a peek at truthreviewed.com. Truthtreatments.com for all our Truth Skin Health products. Never any preservatives, fragrances, fillers, waxes, emulsifiers, vegetable oil, silicone. Nothing your skin doesn't need or doesn't want in any of our Truth Skin Health products. Truthtreatments.com. We've got holiday specials, and our reviews are up at truthreviewed.com. Truthreviewed, that's with a D at the end, .com. Okay, I am super excited to talk to our guest. Jackie Jordan is the author of the book, Heartfelt Marketing, Allowing the Universe to Be Your Business Partner. This is something I have been promoting and working with in my life for many years, the idea that the universe is your friend. And by opening up the heart, you can make some money and you can help change the world at the same time. You can be of service to the world, you can improve lives, and you can provide value. Jackie's going to speak to us today about how to earn successfully without fear when you have to market yourself, which is, as Jackie says, the greatest service you can offer. Please welcome to The Bright Side, Jackie Jordan. Hey, Jackie.
Thank you, Ben, for that fabulous introduction. Boy, you summed that up so well.
That's awesome. Well, I finished your book this morning.
Great to hear that.
Your book is. I love how succinct it is, Jackie. I know at the beginning you were talking about how you wanted it to be a bigger book, but you know what? The fact that you packed all of that information into this slim volume is really, it's a plus. Because I read
Isn't it
it.
amazing how we measure ourselves by everything? Like measure. We measure our worth. We measure our success. I mean, and there was a perfect example. And I think, as you went through the book, much of the, growth success that I experienced, and you as you do in your mindset coaching, is that I had to overcome it myself. Much of what I share and get to teach or encourage or inspire is basically because I had to overcome, my own, limiting belief systems myself, and thinking that I had to have a perfect book because it had a certain page count or something like that, or the value of the content wasn't worthy is exactly what I say we don't have to do.
Well, isn't that interesting how Isn't that interesting how the universe is set up? So you learn when you teach. So you give, you get when you give.
Yes, and that's definitely been the example of my experience and my life, which means that I've had to grow through a lot of obstacles. My background's a TV producer. I've produced for Montel, Maury Povich, Geraldo Rivera during the O.J. Simpson time. I was a predecessor to what became reality TV. So I've always been basically in the creative business arts and storytelling, and so I have my business now, TV Guestpert, through what we do now in TV Guestpert Publishing is really taking ideas and materializing them, but trying to, but working to materialize them in a profitable, sustainable way, and not just being creative. And we do it for business owners, and the reason I bring it up in that context is that when we're creating something, keeping the bottom line in mind is important and significant, and it's also not the only part of it. Whereas the flip side is true too, and there's so many people that I mentor in business, where I say, your candle making hobby is awesome, but you're not going to make enough candles in your garage to support yourself. So that becomes a passion or a hobby and not a business.
So how does let's say somebody has a candle making business in their garage. How does this idea of allowing the universe to be your business partner play into transforming this little hobby that you say into something that's a business, something that somebody can earn a living at and earn a living doing their passion? How can the universe help?
Well, God is in the numbers. Good orderly direction, God is in the numbers. So I'm a big believer on keeping your numbers. I say that keeping your numbers is like your ABCs, and if you write down what you make and what you spend, and then you add them up at the end of the month, those numbers form, those letters of the numbers form words, and you add up those words over a period of time, and you get a story, and that story tells you what you believe about yourself, how you live, the choices you make in the world. And if you keep enough data over a period of time, you can write your own story, because now you're choosing how to be in alignment with the universe in your work or your vision, and you can write your vision. So that's kind of the metaphor that I talk about with the basics of keeping your numbers.
I didn't quite get that. First of all, I didn't quite understand what you meant by that. How do the numbers transform into your story? And what do you mean by numbers?
Your numbers, your monthly nuts. What is your monthly nuts? What is it that you have to earn? What is it that your business is making? If you're taking the candle making person, what is the person's monthly nut? How much do they need to make to sustain the business? How much do they need to make to sustain themselves? Keeping track of those numbers. How much does it cost to make your candles and put the wick in there and mail them out and ship them out?
How does that turn to a story?
And it comes to a story, yeah. And it's a story
how does
you want to keep this story. Well, if the numbers aren't comfortable, then you can choose to rewrite a different story with your numbers. And maybe that project or that passion isn't such a passion anymore, because it costs a lot more to keep it going, keep it running.
So, in other words, you assess the numbers to see if it's a value. It's going to be a valuable business venture by looking at the numbers. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah. Yeah, I mean that's definitely what we would say on the linear brain side, but it also tells us when I look at somebody's numbers, I can tell like what they feel about themselves. I can tell what their view is on the world, what kind of debt they have. Yeah, there's a lot of story in people's numbers.
Well, that is fascinating.
Earn and spend money.
So when I think of numbers, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I'm being really left brain here. When I think of numbers, I think you're either in the black or in the red. It's very simple. How does that turn into a story?
Well, if you're in the black, if you're somebody who's consistently in the black, you can write your own story. You can write your own vision. You can write, I want to go on vacation. I want a luxury car. I want my kids to go to the best school. I want to experience this. When you're someone who's in the red or in the debt, you're bound by the story that your numbers are telling. And so you have less choice, you have less freedom, then you have less, you're not having the opportunity to write and create your stories.
All right, skip real quick. We got to take a commercial break. Tell me that acronym again that you did for God, G-O-D.
Oh, good orderly direction. Good orderly. People have trouble with the word God, but yeah, good orderly direction.
Gotcha. All right, we got to take a commercial break. I want to dive into the book and talk about the 5 pitfalls when we come back. Okay, Jackie?
Great.
Jackie Jordan's with us. Her book, Heartfelt Marketing, Allowing the Universe to Be Your Business Partner. More with Jackie right after this. Okay, we are back on the bright side. I'm Pharmacist Ben. We're talking to Jackie Jordan about her book, Heartfelt Marketing, Allowing the Universe to Be Your Business Partner. Jackie, so you got 5 pitfalls, the doom, that spell doom for revenue. Tell us about those.
Yes, Ben, thank you so much for asking about them. So, yeah, in Heartfelt Marketing, I talk about how to earn successfully without fear when you have to market yourself, which people are afraid to promote themselves a lot of times just because, we all suffer from imposter syndrome, and I say we all suffer from imposter syndrome.
I can relate.
Yeah, and the second one is learn a heart sale versus a mind sale, and so the difference is, we all know what it feels like when someone tries to sell us something and we feel like we've been slimed and we want to go take a shower with a fire hose. And so a lot of people don't want to step forward to sell because they feel like it's dirty. When I say with the reframe in that as a heart sell is that we're being of service, that we have goods or services to offer the world or talent, and that it is a disservice not to share them with the world, and we all deserve to be remunerated accordingly for those products, services, or talents.
Let me ask you a question about that. Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
What if you don't, and I've been in these situations, what if you're selling something that you don't believe in? What if you're selling something that you think that you can't really get to that place where you think you're doing a service to somebody?
It's hard I personally, Jackie, am very unsuccessful. And selling, even in the business that I work in, I have to have such a passion for my clients, and when I do, I feel we can be unstoppable. But when I don't believe in somebody or when I don't believe in a product, I tend to be unsuccessful at doing that. Sometimes when I'm working with in the mentorship, I sometimes I tell some of my people that we mentor that sometimes you have to show up and earn, and sometimes we don't always have a choice. We're gonna have to sell the widget because we have to make a living. Yeah. And then sometimes that exercise is really good in terms of depersonalizing and our feelings around everything, because not every our feelings aren't always facts. But when it comes to stuff that we put out in the world, and you're an extraordinary entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur. I speak to entrepreneurs. When we're entrepreneurs, it's really hard not to believe in what we're doing. Yeah. Different when we're doing it for the man or somebody else. That's a little bit more of a different perspective. But when it's for ourselves, we have a responsibility. I love that respondability to share it with the world.
I love that. So almost, if you have something that you're producing in the world and you really think people need it, you owe it to the world. You're being stingy if you don't share it. If you don't have a business.
I I think it's hoarding. I think it's squandering your talents and gifts, especially where, Ben, where you and I are, and many of the business owners and your listeners are, where we are at our point in our life is we've aggregated a collective body of professional wisdom. And it is squandering if we don't share it with as many people as we can, because where we've been in our respective industries has allowed us a proprietary viewpoint that most people don't ever have access to. And so it becomes more at this
it's not ours.
In our careers, a duty. Exactly.
It's the world's. Exactly. We owe it to the world. Yeah, I love that.
Exactly. And so, in the heartfelt marketing, the learn the secret of great story, telling is something I also, when we market ourselves, we'll have a good story. We usually have a good story, and I look forward to learning the rest of your stories. And I know that my stories have equally been interesting. One of my favorite stories that I tell is that I was punked by Sacha Baron Cohen in the movie Bruno.
You were? Well, say that again. You were in the movie?
I was punked. I made the cutting floor. I didn't make the actual final film, which I took as a compliment. And so just to make a long story short, I got hired to do a media consult, and they asked me the night before if I would meet this German fashionista who wanted to do a television pilot. And so I showed up. They paid me cash. I signed a 14-page disclosure agreement. And in fact, in my book, Get on TV, I have in the back of the book a standard appearance agreement. I want people to know what a standard appearance agreement looks like, so I'm very versed in it. But this agreement was like ironclad, and they talked about filmed, and you won't sue, and things just didn't make sense. And I walked into the scene, and I knew I was going to be recorded, and this man with an accent was making fun of my clothes and trying to get me to drink champagne at 10 in the morning.
That's
great. I was so confused, and my producer had started counting all the cameras that were on me, and I was so the scene is in the movie Bruno, and then my original scene is there, but when they do the cutaway shot, it's not to me. They ended up punking another, basically a PR person, but he worked me for about 2.5 hours, and
you had no clue.
No, I woke up in the scene and I realized what happened, and I literally thought I was in the Truman Show. I was like, I started counting the cameras. I realized where the control room was. I even had in the back of my mind that Jay Roach, the director for Sacha Baron Cohen, was in town filming, and I stayed with the scene. It was weird. I don't know why. I had a choice.
That's awesome.
Left. But I stayed with the scene, and I stayed really professional. So when I put my clients out in the world in terms of media and publicity, I tell them, own your content and own your truth. And if you're not meant to be, you'll get cut. And so having had that experience has made my clients never tell me that they can't say yes to an opportunity.
That's great. So let's sit with that for just a second. Own your content and own your truth. That means just be authentic, be real, and don't give in to whatever you think that has to happen there. Just be yourself. Is that right?
Yeah. And in that case, they did it. They cut me out.
Well, but you were yourself. You were yourself.
I was myself. And and it showed that in a situation where they were really looking for a moment of unintegrity, they couldn't use me in the film because I didn't. Wow. I wasn't unprofessional. Even in the most obnoxious situation, I still maintained my integrity and my professionalism. And
was he pushing
there was nothing funny about it.
He was trying to push you.
Oh yeah, there's a focus group in the scene in Bruno, and they look like truck drivers. So when I saw the focus group, I was confused because here it's supposed to be a fashion pilot, television pilot, and these are clearly men who would have no sense of fashion whatsoever. They showed me gay porn.
Are you serious?
It was so over the top. But I had accepted the job. And it wasn't like I stood there and I accepted abuse, but I was definitely being razzed. And to get a reaction, they wanted a reaction from me. And I just stayed neutral and professional. And honestly, to tell you the truth, Ben, I've been in Hollywood for so long. It was years that I have seen everything, even if it hasn't been filmed, even if I haven't been filmed.
Wow, I'm sure.
Like, I have seen every character out there, that it kind of was like, it really was almost like one more day at the job.
That is hysterical, Jackie Jordan. That's awesome. Do you watch him now and you think it's funny?
I don't know if I've ever thought he's funny. I do respect how he takes an art form and pushes boundaries.
Yeah, that's right.
I do respect that. When I had the moment of realization on camera with him, when he was trying to tell me in the movie Bruno that he could get all of these celebrities, and I said to him, you're starting to scare me. I said, you're speaking to me like that movie Borat where the guy chased Pamela Anderson across the country. Yes, and that's when I woke up.
Oh, that's
great. It came out of my mouth, and then I looked at him, and I'm like, oh, my God. I'm doing a movie scene with Sacha Baron Cohen.
Oh, my God.
And then that's when I started counting cameras and angles, and then I realized the control room. And then I actually realized I had seen Isla Fisher, his wife, in the hallway before we shot. Like, it was all came together in my head. But I stayed. I stuck it out.
So we got about a minute here. So I love that concept of authenticity. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that's important for allowing the universe to be your business partner?
Well, you have to let go of expectations and outcomes. I think that's the biggest piece of authenticity. And somebody who's authentic isn't necessarily, it's not a personality that's authentic. It's the ability to be in alignment with a moment in your truth and not have expectations for outcome. And that, to me, is what authenticity is.
That's awesome. Jackie, we're out of time. Thank you so much for being on the bright side. The book is Heartfelt Marketing, Allowing the Universe to be Your Business Partner. One last word of wisdom, Jackie. Share with us. Real succinct.
Everybody's got a story and everybody's got a talent. So, social media's made it easier to share.
I love it. Thank you so much, Jackie, for being on the bright side. I'll talk to you real soon, okay?
Take care, Ben. Thank you.
Have a beautiful day. That's Jackie Jordan. Her book is Heartfelt Marketing, Allowing the Universe to be Your Business Partner. And that's all the time we have for today on the bright side. I am Pharmacist Ben. Thanks for listening, friends. Have a wonderful, beautiful, awesome, spectacular day. We'll talk to you later, folks. Bye for now.